The judge's gavel slammed down, sharp as a gunshot, sealing the revenge I had fought for in this courtroom drama of betrayal. Across the aisle, Jeff Patterson's face turned ghost pale, the arrogant smirk of a cheating husband wiped clean as reality hit. His father, Mr. Patterson, looked like he'd swallowed a wasp, the confident image of a wealthy family patriarch cracking under the weight of this infidelity and betrayal exposure. His siblings fidgeted, avoiding my eyes, squirming under the truth they could no longer hide. This is not just another infidelity revenge story. This is the moment a betrayed woman takes back her power and makes them pay, legally, painfully, and publicly. And this is just the beginning. My name is Christabel Norris, and I'm 31 years old. What you just heard wasn't the beginning, it was the glorious, meticulously planned middle of a story that started with love, betrayal, and the kind of pain that either breaks you or forges you into something sharper. Let me take you back to where it really began, before the courtroom, before the freeze, before I learned just how deep treachery could run in the veins of the Patterson family. It was 3 years ago in Atlanta. Summer heat shimmering off the pavement, the smell of magnolias thick in the air. I met Jeff through a community outreach program I volunteered with. He was charming, disarmingly so. Spiritual, quoting scriptures with a soft-spoken sincerity that felt like balm on my perpetually busy soul. I was 28, my event planning business finally hitting its stride, building beautiful dreams for other people. Jeff? He was charming, handsome, and perpetually in between opportunities. Naive, hopeful Christabel saw potential, not a pattern. I believed in partnership, in building a future together. So, when the little blue lines appeared on the pregnancy test, painting a picture of a family I'd always craved, I thought it was fate. Our son, Elijah, was born amidst whispered promises of forever. Then came the summons. Not long after Elijah's first gummy smile, Jeff's father, the formidable Mr. Patterson, invited me to their sprawling, unnaturally perfect home in Heritage Oaks for a family talk. Butterflies of hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe they wanted to welcome me officially? Discuss helping Jeff find stability? Support us? I walked into their marble foyer, the air heavy with the scent of expensive polish and something else, judgment. They were all there. Jeff, his two sharp-eyed sisters, his smirking brother, and Mr. Patterson presiding from a leather armchair like a king holding court. The mood wasn't welcoming, it was transactional. Christabel, Mr. Patterson began, his voice smooth as aged whiskey, devoid of warmth. We're grateful you've given us a grandson. A Patterson heir. He paused, letting the weight of the name hang in the air. As a token of our appreciation. He gestured vaguely towards the manicured lawn visible through the bay window. We are gifting you and Jeff the adjacent plot. Land. Right next to the family home. A gift? Land? It sounded grand. Generous. My heart swelled. Maybe I'd misjudged them? Then reality, cold and sharp, pierced the bubble. Jeff had no job. No savings. Building a house? That cost everything. And it did. I cost everything. Jeff offered charming dreams and empty hands. The permits, the architect, the foundation pouring, the plumbing snaking through dirt, the framing rising against the Georgia sky, the roof sealing our supposed future, every single nail, every sheet of drywall, every fixture was paid for by my sweat, my relentless work booking events, my savings meticulously bled dry. Over $210,000. I documented it all, not out of suspicion then, but out of habit, the event planner and me keeping meticulous records, invoices in triplicate, bank transfers, contractor agreements, all neatly filed in my Google Drive. Jeff, in moments of performative gratitude, would leave voice notes, "Baby, you're amazing. This house. It's happening because of you. Our dream." I saved those too. Foolish, sentimental me. 6 months after we moved into my house, built on their gifted land, the chill set in. Jeff stopped touching me. Conversations dwindled to monosyllables. He'd disappear for hours, claiming job interviews that never materialized. When he was home, his eyes slid over me like I was furniture. The man who whispered love verses became a cold, closed door. I begged. I cried alone in the shower. I prayed until my knees ached. Desperate, I even approached Mr. Patterson, pleading for him to talk to his son, to help us. He listened with detached politeness, offering platitudes about God's plan and patience. Nothing changed. The house felt like a beautiful, echoing tomb. Then came the second summons. Another family meeting. This time, dread coiled like a snake in my gut, but a flicker of desperate hope remained. Maybe now they'll intervene. Maybe they'll make him see. I walked into the same opulent living room. Same faces. Same judgmental air. But this time, they were arranged like a tribunal. Jeff wouldn't meet my eyes. Mr. Patterson broke the silence. Christabel. We need clarity. Jeff seems troubled. What's happening in your home? The dam broke. 3 years of love, sacrifice, isolation, and cold neglect poured out. My voice trembled, but the words were clear: the distance, the crushing silence, the absence of affection, the loneliness even in the house I built. I just want my partner back, I choked out, tears finally spilling over. I want us to be a family for Elijah. They let me cry. Then they turned to Jeff. The room held its breath. He shifted, cleared his throat, and looked directly at his father, not at me. When he spoke, the 6 words weren't shouted. They were delivered with a chilling, matter-of-fact finality that sucked all the air from the room. I can't marry her. I want my ex. Time stopped. The tears froze on my cheeks. The rage that erupted wasn't fiery, it was glacial, spreading through my veins like liquid nitrogen. His ex. The one he'd vaguely mentioned, the one supposedly long gone. All the coldness, the distance, it had a name. Before I could even draw breath, the Patterson machine whirred to life, grinding my heart to dust. His older sister, lips pursed in pious disapproval, Christabel, not every relationship is meant for marriage. You have your son. Be grateful. His brother, leaning back with a smirk, honestly? It's a blessing you found out his true feelings now. Better than wasting more years. And Mr. Patterson? The patriarch? He simply nodded, a serene, infuriating calm settling over his features. Indeed, he intoned. God closes one door to open another. He will send you your own husband, in his time. Amen. Amen. The word echoed, sacrilegious and cruel. They sat there, a united front of callousness, dismissing me, my love, my sacrifices, my very existence like yesterday's trash. The glacial rage solidified into a diamond-hard core within me. My house. The thought cut through the numbness. The house I paid for. And the house? My voice emerged, surprisingly steady, cold as the look I fixed on Mr. Patterson. The house I built? On the land you so generously gifted? Jeff finally looked at me, a flicker of discomfort in his eyes, quickly masked by defiance. His father, however, didn't flinch. He steepled his fingers, a benevolent dictator pronouncing sentence. The land is Patterson land, Christabel. It stays. The structure? That's yours. He waved a dismissive hand. Take your house and leave the land. A brittle, humorless laugh escaped me. Take my house? Leave the land? As if a 2-story brick home was a dollhouse I could simply pick up and carry away. As if they weren't stealing the very foundation from under me, quite literally. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it, cloaked in their faux Christian benevolence, was the final spark. The glacial rage ignited. Not into a wild inferno, but into a cold, focused flame. They thought I was the help. The easily discarded womb who provided their heir and their asset. They were about to learn exactly what Christabel Morris was made of. I played the broken woman. I let my shoulders slump. I murmured something about needing time, about Elijah. I walked out of their perfect house on their precious land, feeling their satisfied, dismissive gazes on my back. The broken woman act lasted exactly until my car door closed. Then, the strategist took over. That night, while Elijah slept, I didn't weep. I opened my laptop. I opened Google Drive. Folders upon folders, building permits. Foundation invoice. Plumbing phase 1. Roofing materials. Final fixtures payment. Bank statements showing transfer after transfer from my business account to contractors. And the audio files, baby, this kitchen is gonna be amazing, all thanks to you. Can't believe we're here, Chris. You built this dream. Jeff's voice, dripping with gratitude he never truly felt. By dawn, I was on the phone with Vanessa Sharp, the most ruthless real estate litigator in Atlanta, known for eviscerating entitled men. They want me to take my house and leave their land, Vanessa, I said, my voice devoid of tears, filled only with cold steel. I want the land and the house. Or I want it all frozen in hell until they rot. Vanessa's smile was audible over the line. Constructive trust. Equitable interest. We bury them in their own paperwork, Christabel. And we did. The lawsuit hit them like a freight train. Subpoenas rained down. Depositions exposed Jeff's chronic unemployment, his lies about job hunting, his rekindled affair with the ex, conveniently timed to start after the house was complete. My meticulously kept records were an impenetrable wall. Their smug assurance crumbled as Vanessa paraded every invoice, every bank transfer, every damning voice note before the judge. Their claim that the house was somehow separate from the land it was irrevocably attached to? Laughed out of court. Hence the glorious sound of that gavel. Freeze. Injunction. Their precious asset, the symbol of their dynasty built partly on my money, locked down. Useless. Worthless until I decided its fate. But I wasn't done. While they scrambled, hiring overpriced lawyers and panicking about their frozen legacy, I moved on Elijah. Full custody. Jeff's sporadic consulting gigs and lack of stable income history painted a clear picture. The judge saw a devoted mother who provided stability versus a disinterested father entangled in family drama. Primary custody. Mine. Then came the true rebirth. I sold Morris Event Magic, my beloved but now tainted business, for a significant sum. Not to run, but to build something bigger. Something that would cast a long shadow over the Pattersons' fading suburban fantasy. In the heart of Buckhead, Atlanta's glittering epicenter of wealth and aspiration, I opened the doors to House of Christabel. A luxury wedding venue dripping in elegance, sophistication, and a very specific, resonant origin story. My launch campaign didn't shy away. Billboards, social media, glossy magazine spreads featured my face, serene and powerful, beside the tagline. She built his dream house, then built an empire of her own. Celebrate your new beginning at House of Christabel. The irony was exquisite. My pain, my betrayal, transformed into my brand. My resilience sold. And it sold big. Atlanta's elite flocked to book their big days in my kingdom. The Patterson house? That beautiful, empty shell on their frozen land? I drove past it sometimes. Windows dark. Lawn growing wild. Paint already beginning to fade at the edges. A ghost haunting their perfect heritage Oak Street, a constant, silent reminder of their greed and my victory. Let them keep their stagnant dirt. My soil was fertile with success. Life was sweet. Rich. Respected. Elijah, thriving. House of Christabel, a roaring success, a symbol of triumph over betrayal. The Pattersons were a bad memory, locked out of their own play by the law I wielded. I'd won. Or so I thought. Tonight was the grand opening of our new exclusive vow renewal package. The venue shimmered, crystal, candlelight, the soft murmur of wealthy guests, the clink of champagne flutes. I stood on the mezzanine, surveying my kingdom, a satisfied smile playing on my lips. Below, Vanessa Sharp, my legal savior, held court near a towering ice sculpture. I made my way down, intending to thank her again. As I approached the group surrounding her, her voice, sharp and carrying, sliced through the ambient noise. Utterly delusional, of course. The injunction is ironclad. But the sheer gall of them trying it on again. I touched her arm. Vanessa? Trying what on? She turned, her expression a mix of irritation and amusement. Christabel. Perfect timing. You won't believe the latest Patterson gambit. Pure desperation. She lowered her voice slightly, but the intensity in her eyes held me captive. They've petitioned the court again. Not to lift the freeze, oh no. They know that's hopeless. They're trying a different angle. A family law angle. She paused, letting the implication hang. My blood ran cold. Family law? What could they possibly? Elijah. They had to mean Elijah. But custody was settled. Solid. Vanessa leaned closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. They're not contesting your custody, Christabel. They're leveraging the property. They claim the frozen house and land represent Elijah's future Patterson inheritance, endangered by the legal stalemate. They're petitioning for a forced sale, for Elijah's benefit, arguing that the court-appointed proceeds guardian should be, guess who? The elegant champagne flute felt suddenly slippery in my hand. The glittering room seemed to tilt. All the old fury, cold and sharp, surged back, hotter than before. They weren't just greedy. They were vindictive. They were using my son, the grandson they once prized only as an heir, as a legal battering ram against me. To get their hands on my investment, my frozen victory, under the guise of paternal concern. Mr. Patterson's pious face swam in my vision. God will give you your own husband. Amen. Now God, apparently, was giving them my son's future as a weapon. Vanessa saw the storm in my eyes. She placed a steadying hand on my arm. It's a Hail Mary, Christabel. Legally flimsy. Morally bankrupt. But her gaze hardened. It means they're not done. They're dragging Elijah into their swamp. They're declaring war. Again. The carefully constructed piece of my empire trembled. The music, the laughter, the sparkling lights, it all faded into a buzzing hum. They wanted to play with fire using my child as kindling? The diamond-hard core within me, forged in their betrayal, ignited anew. This wasn't just about property anymore. This was about my son. My legacy. And the Pattersons had just made a catastrophic mistake. The icy calm descended once more, sharper, deadlier. I met Vanessa's fierce gaze. Then we go back to war, I said, my voice a low, dangerous whisper that cut through the celebratory noise. And this time, Vanessa, we don't just freeze their assets. I looked out over my thriving kingdom, then back at her, a terrifying certainty settling in my bones. This time, we erase them. The battle lines weren't just redrawn, they were scorched into the earth. And the fire had only just begun. The icy fury that gripped me in the glittering heart of the House of Christabel didn't dissipate, it crystallized. Vanessa's words, they're declaring war. Again. Weren't a warning, they were a battle cry echoing in the hollow space the Pattersons had carved in my life years ago. They wanted to use Elijah, my son, the innocent soul they'd only valued as a male heir, as a pawn to claw back my money trapped in that frozen house. The audacity wasn't just breathtaking, it was an act of war that demanded annihilation. We don't just freeze them, Vanessa, I'd hissed, the champagne flute forgotten, the celebratory noise a distant buzz. We erase them. And erase them we would. But strategically. Ruthlessly. Their move was cold, calculating, exploiting the vulnerability of a child. Ours would be colder, harder, exploiting the rot at the very core of the Patterson dynasty. Vanessa filed an immediate, scathing response to their Elijah's inheritance petition. It painted a picture not of a concerned family, but of manipulative grifters. 1. The gift revealed, we emphasize the conditional nature of the land gift, contingent solely on birthing a male heir, a transaction, not generosity. 2. Jeff's worthlessness. We meticulously detailed Jeff's chronic unemployment, lack of financial contribution to Elijah's life, court-ordered child support was a joke, and his demonstrable lack of interest in fatherhood beyond the initial heir production phase. We included records of missed visitations, unanswered calls, the works. 3. The source of the inheritance. We hammered home the undeniable fact: the only value in that frozen property was the house, built entirely with my $210,000 plus. The land, without the structure, was significantly less valuable. Any inheritance for Elijah derived solely from my stolen labor. Forcing a sale now, under their control, was simply a backdoor attempt to liquidate my asset. The judge, the same one who saw through their first charade, was visibly unimpressed with the Pattersons' latest gambit. He denied their immediate request for a forced sale pending a full hearing. But the hearing was scheduled. They dragged Elijah into the legal arena, and that alone was an unforgivable sin. While Vanessa managed the legal front, I unleashed Vivian Chin. Her retainer was the best money I'd ever spent. Her directive was laser-focused: dig. Not just on Jeff. Dig on all of them. Mr. Patterson, the siblings, their spouses. Businesses, finances, property records, everything. Find the rot. Find the leverage. Find what they value more than that damned land. Vivian worked in the shadows, a digital ghost haunting the Pattersons' meticulously constructed facade of suburban prosperity. Weeks bled into a tense month. The custody hearing loomed, a dark cloud threatening the peace I'd fought so hard to build for Elijah. He was happy, thriving in his new school near the house of Christabel, blissfully unaware of the legal storm bearing his name. Protecting that innocence was my fiercest battle. Then, Vivian called. Not to my office, but to a discreet, soundproofed meeting room in her firm. Christabel, she began, her eyes gleaming with the predatory satisfaction of a hawk that has spotted crippled prey. The Pattersons aren't just entitled. They're corrupt. And deeply, profoundly stupid. She laid it out, each revelation a hammer blow to their carefully curated image. 1. Mr. Patterson's shell game, his successful consulting firm? A labyrinth of shell companies shuffling money between Atlanta, a dubious offshore account in the Caymans, and several struggling properties he owned under different LLCs. Significant chunks of income were undeclared. Vivian had traced payments from questionable sources, companies linked to environmental violations and labor lawsuits. 2. The sister's shenanigans, the pious older sister, so quick to judge me? Her nonprofit, supposedly aiding underprivileged youth, showed massive administrative overhead and payments to vendors owned by her husband. Classic embezzlement, thinly veiled. 3. The brother's bravado, the smirking brother, always flashing cash? His luxury car dealership was a front. Vivian found evidence of title washing, odometer fraud, and loans secured against the same vehicles multiple times. A ticking fraud bomb. 4. The land itself, the ultimate lie, this was the crown jewel. Vivian had dug into the history of the gifted land parcel in Heritage Oaks. Turns out, it wasn't fully owned by Mr. Patterson when he gifted it. Part of it was still under a restrictive covenant from the original neighborhood developer, a covenant strictly prohibiting subdivision or the construction of secondary dwellings without express written consent, which they never obtained. Their generous gift was potentially fraudulent from the start. Worse, the permit approvals for my house? Vivian found irregularities suggesting Mr. Patterson might have influenced the local zoning board. Bribery. Plain and simple. The evidence was damning. Spreadsheets, bank trails, email fragments, recovered from old backups Vivian accessed, property records, whistleblower statements from former disgruntled employees of the brothers' dealership. It wasn't just leverage, it was an arsenal capable of sending multiple Pattersons to prison and dismantling their entire financial empire. The custody hearing wasn't about custody. Not really. It was about the frozen property and the Pattersons' desperate bid to control it through Elijah. Jeff sat beside his father's expensive lawyer, looking bored and resentful. Mr. Patterson exuded an air of wounded indignation. How dare I obstruct his grandson's birthright? Their lawyer painted a picture of me as bitter, vengeful, withholding Elijah's inheritance out of spite. He spoke of the stagnant asset, the frozen potential, the need for a neutral sale to benefit Elijah. Then Vanessa stood. She didn't talk about the house first. She talked about Elijah. His well-being, his stability, his life with me, documented with school reports, pediatrician visits, photos of him laughing at the house of Christabel Gardens. She contrasted it sharply with Jeff's absence, his instability, his lack of financial or emotional contribution. Then, she shifted. Your Honor, the petitioner's sudden, intense concern for Elijah's inheritance is not only disingenuous, it's a transparent attempt to circumvent the existing property freeze and seize funds that indisputably belong to my client, Ms. Morris. However, there is a far more disturbing reason why this petition must be denied outright, and why the Patterson family's involvement in Elijah's life requires severe scrutiny. She approached the bench, handing the judge a thick, sealed envelope. Your Honor, contained herein is evidence, obtained through entirely legal channels, of systemic financial misconduct, potential fraud, embezzlement, and bribery involving Mr. Robert Patterson Sr., his children Jeffrey Patterson, Cynthia Patterson-Dawson, and Marcus Patterson. This evidence is currently being reviewed by the Fulton County District Attorney's Office and the IRS. The color drained from Mr. Patterson's face. Jeff stiffened, confusion turning to panic. Their lawyer shot up. Objection, Your Honor. Relevance? This is a character assassination. Relevance, counsel? Vanessa's voice was ice. It speaks directly to the petitioner's character, their fitness to make decisions allegedly in Elijah's best interests, and the illegal foundation upon which the very land they claim as Elijah's inheritance may have been gifted in the first place. She turned back to the judge. This family is not concerned with Elijah's future. They are attempting to use a child as a shield to cover their own criminal activities and salvage assets likely acquired through fraud. Exposing Elijah to this level of corruption and imminent legal jeopardy is the opposite of protecting his interests. We request this petition be dismissed with prejudice and suggest the court consider restricting the Pattersons' access to Elijah pending the outcome of the impending criminal investigations. The courtroom crackled with tension. The judge opened the envelope, his eyes scanning the first few pages, his expression growing grim. Mr. Patterson looked like he might have a stroke. Jeff stared at his father with dawning horror, realizing the depth of the cesspool he'd been swimming in. The siblings weren't present, but their fates were sealed in that envelope. The judge dismissed the Patterson petition. Not just dismissed it, he eviscerated it, citing the troubling evidence presented and expressing grave concerns about the petitioner's motivations and integrity. He upheld the property freeze and injunction without modification. More significantly, he ordered a temporary suspension of Jeff's visitation rights, pending a full psychological and social evaluation and a review of the potential criminal exposure facing the family. He strongly suggested Jeff obtain independent legal counsel, immediately. We walked out of the courtroom into the sterile hallway. Vanessa was already on her phone, briefing the DA's office. Mr. Patterson was surrounded by his furious lawyer and a shell-shocked Jeff, their voices a low, desperate rumble. As I passed, Mr. Patterson lifted his head. The pious mask was gone, replaced by pure, venomous hatred. Not defeat, promise. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The message was clear in the burning intensity of his glare: this isn't over. You will pay. I met his gaze, unflinching, the icy core within me radiating contempt. Let him hate. Let him rage. He was cornered, exposed, and the hounds of justice were closing in. I had the evidence. I had the momentum. I had my son safe. I turned away, heading for the exit, the taste of victory sharp and clean. I stepped out into the bright Atlanta afternoon, the sun warm on my face. Relief warred with lingering tension. I needed to pick up Elijah from his after-school program. Just a few blocks away. I walked towards my car, pulling out my phone to call his teacher, letting her know I was on my way. As I reached my car, parked near the end of the courthouse lot, something felt off. A subtle wrongness. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. I slowed, scanning the mostly empty lot. Nothing obvious. Then my eyes fell on my car. Specifically, the rear driver's side tire. It wasn't just flat. It was shredded, the rubber hanging off the rim in ragged strips. Sabotaged. Deliberately. A cold finger of dread traced my spine, chasing away the warmth of the sun. Too fast. Too blatant. Court had just adjourned. This took time. Planning. Had they been waiting? Watching? Was this just petty vandalism or a warning? I took a step back, my hand tightening on my phone, my eyes darting towards the courthouse entrance. Too far. My gaze swept the lot again, the surrounding streets. A nondescript gray sedan was idling half a block down, its windows tinted dark. Had it been there when I arrived? I couldn't remember. Paranoia, honed by years of Patterson treachery, screamed that it wasn't coincidence. My phone buzzed in my hand. Not a call. A text notification. It was from Elijah's school number. My heart lurched into my throat. I fumbled to open it, the dread solidifying into ice. The message wasn't from his teacher. It was a photo. Taken through what looked like a chain-link fence. It showed Elijah on the school playground, kicking a soccer ball, blissfully unaware. The angle was wrong. Not from the school building. From outside. From somewhere across the street or in the adjacent park. Below the photo, a single line of text, anonymous, untraceable. He looks just like his daddy. Cute kid. Shame about the tire. Be seeing you. The world tilted. The victory in the courtroom meant nothing. The evidence, the frozen house, the empire I built, it all crumbled to dust in that single, horrifying moment. They weren't just coming for me legally anymore. They were coming for Elijah. Directly. Brazenly. And they were watching. Right now. The gray sedan was still idling down the street. The ice in my veins turned to fire, a primal, terrifying inferno of maternal fury. They'd crossed a line from which there was no return. I looked from the shredded tire, to the idling car, to the photo of my son on my screen. My fingers trembled, not with fear, but with a terrifying, focused rage. I had an arsenal of evidence, but they had my child in their sights. The text message burned in my palm, the image of Elijah oblivious on the playground, a knife twisting in my gut. The idling gray sedan down the street felt like a predator's eye. Every instinct screamed run, but rage, cold, incinerating rage, locked my feet to the pavement. They'd touched my son. They'd threatened him. The legal chessboard was swept away. This was primal. My fingers flew over the phone screen, not with panic, but lethal precision. First, a direct call to Elijah's school principal, bypassing the front desk. My voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Principal Davies? Christabel Morris. Code Black Protocol. Now. Lock down the school perimeter. Elijah Morris is to be escorted by 2 staff members directly to the main office. No one enters or leaves that room until I arrive. Not even his father. Especially not his father. I have reason to believe there is an imminent external threat. Police are en route. I hung up before she could fully process, dialing 911 next, reporting the sabotaged tire, the suspicious vehicle, the threatening text referencing my child's location, facts delivered with chilling calm. Then, I did something reckless. I turned away from my crippled car and started walking towards the idling gray sedan. My phone stayed in my hand, recording video. Let them see me coming. Let them see the fury in my eyes. As I got closer, the sedan's engine revved. It wasn't Marcus Patterson behind the wheel. It was his smirking brother, the car dealer fraudster, Jeff's other sibling, Tyler Patterson. His eyes widened, then narrowed with a sneer as he recognized me approaching. He lowered his window just a crack. "Problem, Christabel?" he called out, his voice dripping with mock concern. "Flat tire? Shame. Guess you shouldn't park in bad neighborhoods." I stopped 3 feet from his driver's side door. The phone in my hand was pointed squarely at his face. "Tyler Patterson," I stated clearly for the recording. You just sent me a threatening text message featuring my minor son. You vandalized my vehicle outside a courthouse immediately following a hearing involving your family. The police are minutes away. Run if you want. The evidence is already uploaded to the cloud. His sneer faltered. He hadn't expected this. He expected tears, panic, a frantic mother. Not a glacier walking towards him holding a digital sword. You're crazy, he spat. I didn't send you shit. You can't prove anything. Facial recognition on the playground photo, Tyler, I lied smoothly, my gaze never leaving his. Security cameras on the street. Tire shredding leaves unique tool marks. And your car idling here, captured on my dashcam before I got out. Another lie, but he flinched. You think your daddy's dirty money will save you from felony stalking and child endangerment? Or are you just the sacrificial pawn he sent to scare me? I took another step closer. Tell Robert Patterson this, he touched my son. The gloves are off. I don't just want his money or his freedom now, Tyler. I want him broken. And you? You're the first domino. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing rapidly closer. Panic flashed across Tyler's face. He slammed the car into drive, tires squealing as he tore out of the lot. I got the license plate clear as day on the recording. Let him run. He'd only delay the inevitable. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of controlled chaos. Tyler was arrested 2 hours later trying to board a flight to Mexico with a duffel bag of cash. His phone, seized incident to arrest, contained the damning original photo of Elijah and the sent text. The tire iron found in his trunk matched the shred marks on mine. He sang like a terrified canary in interrogation, implicating his father in the sabotage and the threat, desperate for a deal. Dad said she needed to feel vulnerable. That the kid was her weak spot. He said it would make her back off the property stuff. Mr. Patterson was arrested at his Heritage Oaks mansion for conspiracy, stalking, and felony child endangerment. The sight of the patriarch in handcuffs on his manicured lawn, his face purple with impotent rage, made the front page. Jeff, already reeling from the custody suspension and the looming financial crimes investigation, went completely to ground. Rumors swirled he'd fled the state. The DA, emboldened by Vivian's mountain of evidence and Tyler's confession, moved swiftly. Indictments rained down like hellfire. Mr. Patterson, tax evasion, wire fraud, bribery, zoning board, conspiracy, stalking, child endangerment. Bail denied. He was remanded, trading his silk robes for prison orange. The sister, Cynthia, embezzlement, fraud related to her nonprofit. House arrest, ankle monitor. Tyler, pleading guilty to vandalism, stalking, child endangerment, and spilling everything on his father to avoid the full weight of the financial fraud charges looming over his dealership. He'd still do time, but less. Jeff, now a fugitive, wanted for questioning related to the financial crimes and potential knowledge of the threats. His parental rights hung by a thread. The frozen house on the Patterson land? It became a symbol of their ruin. The injunction held. With the patriarch in jail and the family assets seized or frozen pending trial, there was no money to fight, no money to maintain it. It stood there, even more forlorn, a decaying monument to greed and hubris. Life, on the surface, stabilized. Elijah, initially confused and scared by the sudden security protocols and news snippets, slowly relaxed under the unwavering shield of my protection and the comforting routines of school and the sprawling, secure grounds of the house of Christabel. I hired discreet, former military security for the venue and our home. Vanessa worked tirelessly to permanently sever Jeff's parental rights. Vivian monitored the crumbling Patterson empire, ensuring no stones were left unturned. Business boomed. The story of the woman who built an empire became legend, attracting even more elite clients. I felt, not safe, but in control. Victorious. One crisp autumn evening, the House of Christabel was hosting its most lavish wedding yet. Atlanta's mayor's daughter. The venue shimmered, 1,000 fairy lights, cascading white orchids, the air rich with champagne and expensive perfume. I stood near the grand staircase, overseeing the seamless flow, a picture of composed success. My security chief, Garrett, a stoic man with eyes that missed nothing, stood nearby. "Everything's smooth, Garrett?" I asked, scanning the glittering crowd. "Quiet as a tomb, Ms. Morris," he murmured. "Perimeter secure. No alerts." He paused, frowning slightly at his earpiece. "Hold on." He listened intently for a moment, his expression tightening. "Say again?" "Location confirmed?" He met my eyes, his usual calm replaced by sharp concern. "Ms. Morris. We have a perimeter breach alert. East Service Gate." Silent alarm triggered, then went dead. Camera feed cut. Ice water flooded my veins. Not a social gate. The service gate. Used by deliveries, staff. Less conspicuous. How? I demanded, my voice low and urgent. Unknown. Possible signal jammer. Team en route now. He touched his earpiece again, his face hardening. Team Alpha reports, fire. Small ignition point near the gate. Contained. Appears deliberate. A distraction? Before I could process the word fire, a different sound ripped through the elegant hum of the reception, a piercing, electronic shriek. Not the fire alarm. The panic alarm. Installed only in the secure safe room I'd built within the venue's administrative wing. The room where Elijah was sleeping tonight, guarded by his personal security detail, Mrs. Henderson, a former FBI agent, while I worked the event. Every ounce of blood drained from my face. The fire was a feint. The real target wasn't the venue. It wasn't me. It was the same target they'd always aimed for. Elijah. I didn't think. I ran. Heels clicking uselessly, then kicked off as I sprinted down the plush corridor towards the administrative wing, Garrett a step behind me, barking orders into his comms. Guests gasped, music faltered as the panic alarm's relentless scream drowned out the string quartet. Elijah! Henderson! I screamed, rounding the corner. The reinforced door to the safe room stood slightly ajar. My heart stopped. It should have been locked from the inside, triggered only to open outward by Mrs. Henderson or a specific override code. I slammed my palm against the door, bursting into the small, secure space. The scene was chaos. A table overturned. A lamp shattered on the floor. Mrs. Henderson was slumped against the wall, clutching her head, blood trickling between her fingers, her eyes dazed but alert, filled with fury and pain. Her weapon lay several feet away. Christabel. She groaned, struggling to focus. Masked, too, taser, took. But Elijah's small bed in the corner was empty. His favorite stuffed lion lay abandoned on the floor. The reinforced glass of the only window, a window designed not to open, only to withstand bullets, was gone. Not broken. Removed. Cut out with terrifying precision, leaving a gaping hole open to the dark gardens beyond. The cool night air rushed in, carrying the faint smell of gasoline from the distant distraction fire. Garrett cursed, rushing to the window, scanning the darkness with a tactical light. They had a cutter, professional, gone clean. Team converging outside. I stumbled to the empty bed, my legs buckling. The icy terror was back, 1,000 times worse. They hadn't just threatened. They hadn't just tried to scare. They'd taken him. Right from the heart of my fortress. From under the nose of an ex-FBI agent. Through a window that shouldn't have been penetrable. My hand closed around Elijah's stuffed lion, the fabric cold. The panic alarm still shrieked, a horrifying soundtrack to my worst nightmare realized. The glittering empire, the courtroom victories, the ruined Pattersons, none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was gone. Garrett turned back from the window, his face grim under the flashing emergency lights now pulsing through the hallway. No sign, Ms. Morris. Vanished. But we'll find them. We have to. I looked up from the empty bed, the cold rage within me shattering into a million razor-sharp shards of pure, unadulterated terror. Someone had my son. And this time, I didn't just need Vanessa's legal brilliance or Vivian's digital sleuthing. The hunt wasn't just on, it was a race against time into a darkness I now knew had no rules. The reinforced window gaped like a wound, spilling cold night air and the distant smell of smoke into the safe room. The panic alarm shriek was a physical thing, vibrating in my skull, but it was drowned out by the howling void where my heart had been. Gone. They'd taken him. From under armed guard. From the heart of my fortress. Elijah! The raw scream tore from my throat, primal and desperate, echoing uselessly in the small, violated space. Garrett was already barking coordinates into his comms, his tactical light sweeping the manicured gardens beyond the jagged hole. Mrs. Henderson, bloody but conscious, struggled to her feet, fury warring with pain and shame in her eyes. They tasered me, from behind, before I could clear the door, she gasped, clutching her head. Professional. Silent. Knew the room layout. Knew the alarm would draw everyone away from this wing after the fire. Her voice broke. I'm sorry, Christabel. I failed. Failure wasn't an option. Not now. The icy terror that had paralyzed me shattered, replaced by a supernova of maternal fury, colder and sharper than any blade. They had my son. Garrett! My voice cut through the alarm's wail, sharp as a whip crack. Lock down the entire property. And no one leaves. Not guests, not staff, and no one. Check every vehicle. Sweep every inch. They didn't vanish into thin air. I turned to Mrs. Henderson. Get medical attention. Then pull every camera feed from the last hour. Focus on service entrances, perimeter sensors, especially that gate where the fire was. Find the gap. I snatched Elijah's abandoned stuffed lion from the floor, its familiar softness a cruel mockery. The tiny GPS tracker I'd sewn into its seam months ago, a paranoid mother's insurance policy Vivian Chen had arranged, was my only lifeline. I pulled out my phone, fingers trembling not with fear, but with the terrifying focus of absolute rage. I opened the specialized app. A pulsing red dot appeared on the map, moving fast. Northwest. Towards the river. My blood ran cold, then hot. The river. Industrial wasteland. Abandoned warehouses. Perfect places to disappear a child, or worse. But the dot was moving. He was alive. For now. They're heading northwest, towards the old mill district, I relayed to Garrett, shoving the phone at him. Moving fast. Probably a vehicle. Get your team airborne. Now. Ground units converge silently. No sirens. They panic, they hurt him. My eyes met his, reflecting the same terrifying certainty. I'm going. Ms. Morris, it's too dangerous. They have my son. The words were a guttural roar. My car. The armored SUV. Keys. Now. There was no room for argument. The glacier had melted, revealing the volcano beneath. Garrett saw it. He tossed me the keys. The drive was a blur of screeching tires and violated speed limits. The red dot pulsed relentlessly on my dashboard screen, a digital heartbeat leading me deeper into decaying urban sprawl. Abandoned factories loomed like skeletal giants under the bruised twilight sky. The SUV's powerful engine growled, echoing the fury in my chest. Garrett's voice crackled over the secure comms he'd insisted I take. Air unit has visual. Dark van matching description exiting highway near River Point Drive. Turning into, looks like the old Henderson textile complex. Abandoned. Multiple structures. We're setting perimeter. ETA 90 seconds. River Point Drive. Henderson textile. The red dot stopped pulsing. It was stationary. Inside the complex. My foot slammed the accelerator harder. I skidded to a stop half a block from the rusted chain-link fence surrounding the derelict factory complex. Shadows swallowed the crumbling brick buildings. Silence, thick and menacing, pressed down. Garrett's voice, perimeter set. Thermal shows 3 hostiles inside the main warehouse structure. One smaller heat signature, stationary. Unmoving. Unmoving. The word was a knife. I was out of the SUV before it fully stopped, the stuffed lion clutched in one hand, a compact Glock Garrett had pressed into my other. Hold your positions, I hissed into the comms. I'm going in. Wait for my signal. If you hear shots before I signal, breach. I couldn't risk a firefight near Elijah. I had to get eyes on him. Now. I slipped through a gap in the fence, moving like a ghost through the overgrown lot, using rusted machinery and piles of debris for cover. The main warehouse door hung crookedly open. Darkness yawned within, smelling of damp concrete, oil, and decay. And faintly, gasoline. Voices echoed from deep inside, amplified by the cavernous space. Stupid kid won't stop crying. Shut him up, Jeff, or I will. A harsh, unfamiliar voice. Just give him the damn candy. Keep him quiet. Jeff's voice. Whining. Scared. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. Dad said just scare her. Not this. Your daddy ain't calling the shots from his cell, pretty boy, the harsh voice sneered. We got paid to deliver the kid as leverage. Leverage ain't useful if it's screaming its head off. Now shut it up, or I'll use the rag again. The rag. Chloroform? My vision swam with red. I edged closer, peering around a massive, rusted loom. Flickering light came from a workbench near the center. 3 figures, 2 hulking men in dark clothes I didn't recognize, hired muscle. And Jeff, looking pale and sweaty under a single dangling work light. On the floor near them, bound and gagged, tears streaking his dirty face, sat Elijah. His eyes wide with terror, fixed on the men. Alive. Conscious. One thug held a cloth near Elijah's face. The other was splashing gasoline from a can near the base of a pile of old rags and wooden pallets stacked against a support pillar. They were going to torch the place. With Elijah inside. A tragic accident amidst urban decay. Their leverage point, eliminated, while sending me the most devastating message possible. The cold rage crystallized into a perfect, deadly plan. Robert Patterson's final, vicious play. Eliminate the liability, Elijah, and destroy me in the process. Jeff was just the cowardly puppet, present to ensure Elijah trusted someone enough to be lured away from Mrs. Henderson. He used his own son as bait. I didn't hesitate. I raised the Glock, not at the men, but at the heavy, rusted chain suspending a massive industrial hook directly above the workbench light. I squeezed the trigger twice. The chain links shattered. The hook, weighing hundreds of pounds, plummeted like a meteor. It smashed through the workbench with a deafening crash of splintering wood and tearing metal, obliterating the light and sending shrapnel flying. Darkness plunged, punctuated by screams of pain and shock. One thug caught a piece of flying debris, howling. Gasoline fumes intensified. Elijah! Down! Cover your head! I screamed, rushing forward in the chaos, firing 2 more shots towards the general area of the thugs. Not to hit, but to panic, to disorient. Mommy! Elijah's muffled cry was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The hired muscle reacted with panicked violence. Muzzle flashes erupted in the darkness as they fired blindly. Bullets whined off metal, thudded into concrete. I dropped low, scrambling towards Elijah's voice. Jeff! Get the kid! Get the kid and run, one thug yelled, firing again. I saw Jeff's silhouette stumble towards Elijah, not to save him, but to grab him as a human shield. My blood boiled. I fired again, this time aiming low. Jeff yelped, stumbling as a bullet ripped through his calf. He crashed to the floor, screaming. Breach! 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 I roared into the comms. The warehouse doors exploded inwards. Garrett and his team flooded in, high-powered lights blinding the disoriented thugs. Drop your weapons. On the ground. Now. One thug spun, firing wildly at the lights. A controlled burst from Garrett's rifle dropped him instantly. The other, seeing his partner fall in the overwhelming force, dropped his gun, hands clawing at the air. Don't shoot! Don't shoot! The lights swept the scene. Jeff writhed on the floor, clutching his bleeding leg, sobbing. The two thugs, one dead, one surrendering. And Elijah, bound but miraculously unharmed, his eyes huge, fixed on me. I holstered the Glock and ran the last few feet, dropping to my knees, tearing the gag from his mouth, fumbling with the rough ropes binding his wrists. Baby! Oh my God, baby! Are you hurt? Are you okay? My voice cracked, tears finally spilling over, washing tracks through the grime on his face. He threw his arms around my neck, burying his face in my shoulder, his small body shaking with sobs. Mommy! I knew you'd come. The bad man. Jeff, he said you sent him to get me, he had candy, then the other bad men. I held him tighter than I ever had, rocking him, breathing in the scent of his hair beneath the gasoline stink, feeling the solid, living warmth of him. The void filled, not with peace, but with a fierce, protective fire. I'm here, sweetheart. Mommy's here. You're safe. It's over. Garrett secured the surviving thug and Jeff. Paramedics rushed in, attending to Jeff's leg, checking Elijah. My son had a few scrapes and bruises, terror etched deep, but he was physically whole. I never let go of his hand. The aftermath was a whirlwind of sirens, flashing lights, and grim-faced investigators. The surviving thug, facing murder charges for his partner in kidnapping, rolled over immediately. He named his employer, Robert Patterson. Ordered from jail, through a corrupt guard and a smuggled burner phone. Payment routed through one of his remaining, crumbling shell companies. The plot: kidnap Elijah. Hold him to force me to drop all claims to the frozen property and sign over full custody rights to Jeff. Then, eliminate Elijah and stage the fire to destroy evidence and break me permanently. Jeff, desperate for his father's approval and promised a cut of the recovered property value, was the pawn, luring Elijah away. Jeff, high on painkillers and terror, confessed everything to the detectives, implicating his father in a desperate bid for leniency. He revealed how Robert Patterson had orchestrated the entire vendetta from the moment the court froze the land, the initial threats via Tyler, the sabotage, and finally, this horrific escalation. He'd promised Jeff wealth and freedom, preying on his weakness and resentment. The evidence was irrefutable: smuggled phone records from the jail, financial trails, the thug's testimony, Jeff's confession, the gasoline, the setup for the fire. Robert Patterson's already dire legal situation exploded. Conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, child endangerment, witness tampering, the charges piled up, ensuring he would never again draw breath as a free man. His empire, already in ruins, was formally dismantled by the feds. Cynthia faced additional conspiracy charges. Tyler, still awaiting sentencing, saw any hope of a reduced sentence evaporate. And Jeff? He faced charges of kidnapping, conspiracy, and reckless endangerment of a child. His gunshot wound bought him a hospital bed under guard, a pitiful prelude to a long prison sentence. His parental rights were terminated immediately and irrevocably by a furious family court judge. The frozen house on the Patterson land stood as a grim monument. But its time as a symbol of their legacy was over. It was time for it to symbolize mine. With the legal battles finally concluded, the injunction lifted, and the Patterson claims extinguished, the property was mine. Free and clear. The land and the house. I didn't want it. Not the memories festering in its walls. Not the stain of their greed. But I knew exactly what to do. One crisp Saturday morning, with Elijah safely playing at a friend's house, I stood across the street in Heritage Oaks. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. Reporters lingered at a respectful distance, drawn by the final act of the saga. Vanessa and Vivian stood beside me. Garrett and his team secured the perimeter. In my hand was a simple remote control. Before me stood the once beautiful house I'd built with love and stolen labor. Now, it was prepped. Expert crews had spent weeks carefully removing anything salvageable or environmentally hazardous. What remained was a carefully engineered shell, soaked in fire-retardant accelerants designed for a controlled, symbolic burn. "This ends today," I said, my voice quiet but carrying. "This house was built on lies, betrayal, and stolen dreams. It held nothing but pain. Today, we purge it." I raised the remote. A hush fell over the street. I pressed the button. Controlled flames erupted simultaneously from the foundation vents, the windows, the roof. They weren't the chaotic inferno Robert Patterson had planned for my son. These were precise, powerful, almost beautiful in their destructive purity. Orange and gold engulfed the structure, consuming wood, drywall, and memory with a fierce, roaring hunger. Thick, dark smoke billowed into the clear blue sky, a funeral pyre for the Patterson dynasty. We watched in silence as the flames climbed, the structure groaning and collapsing in on itself. There was no sadness in me. Only a profound sense of release. The physical manifestation of their betrayal, the symbol of their stolen ambition, was turning to ash. The frozen monument was now a blazing beacon of finality. When the fire department moved in to dampen the embers, only the stone foundation and the scorched earth remained. Their land was now just land. Cleansed. The ashes of the Patterson house fertilized new growth. The sale of the cleared land and heritage oaks brought a significant sum added to the ever-growing coffers of the House of Christabel Empire. But more importantly, the scar was healed. Elijah received therapy, gentle and patient, helping him process the trauma. Slowly, the shadows in his eyes receded, replaced by the resilient spark of childhood. He knew his mother had fought dragons for him. And won. House of Christabel didn't just thrive, it became iconic. The story, now fully told and legally vindicated, wasn't just a marketing hook, it was a testament to resilience. We launched the Phoenix Foundation, funded by a percentage of every wedding booked, supporting women and children escaping abusive situations, helping them build their own safe havens. Vanessa remained my fiercely loyal legal eagle. Vivian Chen, my shadow queen, ensured no digital threat ever touched us again. Garrett's security became a seamless, invisible shield. One sunny afternoon, months after the fire, I stood on the terrace of the House of Christabel, watching Elijah chase butterflies in the lavish garden below. The air was sweet with the scent of blooming roses and the distant murmur of a happy wedding rehearsal. Vanessa joined me, handing me a glass of sparkling water. "Final settlement came through from the Patterson asset liquidation," she said, a satisfied glint in her eye. "Every last penny owed for that house, plus damages, plus legal fees. With interest. It's deposited." I looked at the statement, a number that would have once seemed astronomical. Now, it was just a number. A balance settled. "Put it in Elijah's trust," I said, handing it back. "For his future. For his own kingdom, whenever he decides to build it." Vanessa nodded, understanding. The money wasn't the victory. The victory was the peace. The safety. The empire built not just with money, but with the ashes of betrayal forged into unbreakable steel. I looked down at my son, laughing freely in the sunshine, the horrors of the past finally fading into the background. The frozen house was gone. The threats were silenced. The betrayers were broken, imprisoned, or dead. The kingdom I built, the real one, made of love, security, and hard-won peace, stood strong. I raised my glass, not in triumph, but in quiet gratitude for the storm weathered, the battle won, and the future, finally, blazing brightly ahead. The story of Christabel Morris wasn't just about revenge. It was about rising, phoenix-like, from the ashes they tried to bury me in, and building a kingdom no one could ever steal. And in that kingdom, with my son safe and my heart finally at rest, the only thing left to burn was the memory of their names. Thank you for spending your time with my story. Feel free to share your thoughts or reactions in the comments, I'd love to hear from you.